Everybody, I am so excited here to be chatting today with AMD, with a true innovator and industry insider from AMD. We're talking all about software strategy around AI and beyond. Anush, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for having me, Evan.
Well, thanks for being here. I've admired your work and your team's mission for some time. I'm really excited to chat. The AI software landscape is rapidly evolving every day. There's blockbuster news. How do you see AMD positioned on that landscape? And how do you see your competitive, differentiation these days when it comes to software?
Yeah. So the kind of hockey stick curve of like capabilities that are being unlocked by AI, we're just at the beginning of it, right? We're getting into agentic frameworks, we're getting into AI that can help us, change the way we live. And to unlock that value and to unlock the capabilities of AI, you do need a robust compute and AI infrastructure platform. And AMD has been traditionally very good at building that hardware, right? And so if you look at how AMD has now started to build and have moved their hardware to a yearly cadence. So every year there's like a new generation of hardware that's released, right? We had the MI300, the 325, and pretty soon we're going to be, talking about the next generation platform in the next week. And that cadence is continuing to, um, you know, relentlessly move forward. But we need to be able to get customers to be able to trust AMD's software layer on top of that. So we look at the software layer as a product in itself that far outlives a generational hardware piece, right? Like we want you to build on AMD's ROCm, on AMD's software, and we want to support you with whatever you build for the next 10 years, right? So the software longevity is like we need to plan for the next decade of you developing on AMD software. And so we're putting in the core foundational elements to make sure that we are robustly building all that's required for unlocking AI at scale.
Fantastic. I've been a fan of open source for decades, and your open source framework, like ROCm, has been quite a blockbuster. What has that played in your strategy? What role has it played? And how do you contribute to these open source ecosystems?
Yeah. So open is a very, very important part uh, of the AMD strategy, right? Like open ecosystem, open community, and open development methodologies. And so we wholeheartedly support open source, and we want the best software or the best ecosystem components to succeed, so that the best capabilities and innovation happens on AMD hardware. Until now, we've been a little, we were thinking of it as like, hey, here's open source, you can do something. But what we have actively started to do now is we are moving all our development, both internal to AMD and external to AMD, from the same source, which means if you were to buy an AMD device, AMD hardware, you can make the changes that you need in this core ROCm software just as much as an AMD engineer can do.
Wow.
And what this means is you're on the forefront of innovation with open source, right? And we build and ship nightly now, and so it gives you the ability to like fix anything that you think that needs to be fixed, or if you want to contribute or you want to explore something. For example, we had the strict Halo lab form factor that was out, and we were helping the community build ROCm on Windows, and suddenly two external contributors came by and they did PyTorch and they did all of the AO Triton, and now we have world class Windows support for ROCm, which is amazing to watch, because if we had done it ourselves, it would have taken us a while to get to that point. But the fact that it's open and somebody else really wanted to, push forward the innovation there, they were able to contribute very, meaningfully.
I bet. And you have such a unique bird's eye perspective on hardware and software performance. How do you think about sort of seamless performance optimization between your hardware and software stack, particularly for these AI workloads you're seeing?
Yeah. So it is a very fascinating place to be because we watch AI at the application level move really fast, right? But hardware tends to move, even though we're doing it every year, it takes a year for hardware to show up and get new capabilities. Previously, that used to take 5 years, right? Like when old school silicon was designed, it would take a 5 year cycle. But now we're getting down to a 1 year cycle, but that's still hardware. It's slow. But software is moving really fast. So the software piece is always like a combination of how do you use the hardware you have, and you're co-designing how you want the next generation hardware to be and behave so that current generation workloads will work well. But then you're also trying to predict what the workloads would look like, because 2 years ago, everyone was like, oh, pre-training, we need the biggest cluster to do this. And now everyone's like, test time compute and inference. Inference is the big thing, right? And AMD has invested in inference, pretty significantly. So it's good for us that we call that, because pre-training curve is now like the scalability laws of like pre-training is kind of saturating a little bit. And now it's all about test time compute and inference. So we need to predict, we need to maximize the hardware that we have today. We need to design the hardware for the future. And to design the hardware for the future, we need to predict to some extent where the software and the applications are going to be so that we can, design next year's hardware.
A great point. And speaking of predicting the future, so much excitement around building Gen AI applications. I mean, everyone is diving in on the developer side. What does that mean for your roadmap? And how are your software teams adapting to this shift and demand for Gen AI applications?
Yeah. So I think Gen AI applications and just broader AI applications, I think we're just, scraping the surface in terms of like the capabilities of what is possible. We are investing heavily to make sure that day zero, any hardware that AMD ships is fully software optimized. And what that means is you will be able to unbox and have day zero support for PyTorch, JAX, all the common frameworks. But then you have the agentic frameworks and others on top, right? MCP and others, where you want to be able to hook into the higher level reasoning and frameworks that unlock the AI layer of the applications. And so we want to get the hardware out of the way. We want to get the base enablement software out of the way. And then we want to innovate in the places where, the new models are coming up and the new Gen AI applications that we want to enable.
Fantastic. Let's talk about community. You have a tremendous community built around AMD's AI software. So much, grassroots interest across the world. How important are developer tools and that community and nurturing it and investing in it moving forward?
That is a very good question, and that is something that I always remember Steve Ballmer getting on stage and shouting development.
Developers.
He had a sweaty shirt on. And in fact, for the ROCM meetup a couple of months ago in San Francisco, I did the same thing just to kind of stress the point that we are very, very, very interested in enabling the developer ecosystem. And not just, it's not just about enabling it as giving you tools to do what you want to do. We want to co-innovate with you, right? We want to be able to get the developer community working hand in hand. And so anything that we can do, let us know. We're going to make that happen. For example, we are, for the first time, we're going to be shipping out our new hardware that is just going to be launched next week to the open source community at the same time of the launch, right? The day that the
Wow.
product is launched, they're going to have access to the same system, and the software is going to be ready. So it's not like, hey, here's hardware, and 6 months later we're going to do something else, right? So we are taking it very seriously in terms of enabling developers. So we're going to be shipping out these systems to the major open source ecosystem players, so that day one they can unbox and play with it just as much as a AMD engineer.
That's fantastic. I come from a background in the enterprise and data center where things have traditionally moved a little more slow and cautious. That's changed. I mean, the cloud providers, the enterprises are absolutely clamoring for more AI tools. How do you make that accessible for those folks with your software platforms?
Yeah. So for the retail users that want to get access to AMD, next week we're going to be launching our developer cloud, which anyone anyone who signs up is going to get free credits for using
Mm.
AMD GPUs. But then, let's say you try it out and you like it, you can put in your credit card and continue using it. But the ability to move from development to production will also be reduced, right? So that you have the ability to just try it, and then if whatever you're trying works, you can just move it to production right there, right? So you have the ability to try before you buy, if you will. But also, AMD has a immense footprint across all verticals. I mean, like embedded, we have a very good presence, client on laptops, on discrete GPUs, right, on the workstations, and then obviously on Instinct. So what we're increasingly doing is giving you a unified interface that you can develop on one of these and deploy on another. Right? So, for example, here's the Windows laptop with ROCm on it,
Mhm.
and I can actually build entire ROCm on my laptop. This is my primary ROCm development machine, and I can deploy on my Instinct, system as soon as it's ready. So the pervasiveness of AI and the pervasiveness of AMD's AI software is coming together in a way that I think will unlock customers to be able to get the best experience across.
Fantastic. Let's talk about growth. AI models are growing exponentially in number and size. We haven't seen this since maybe the beginning of the internet or the rise of mobile, perhaps the early days. So tremendous challenges. How do you see those challenges around scale, software scalability, energy efficiency, other issues? What's your thinking at the moment?
Yeah, so AMD has a unique advantage in terms of um, power and efficiency. Right? Like we've always been very power efficient, but also just physics wise, AMD has a chiplet design for the AMD Instinct platforms. So we have 8 chips with the HBM memory that's associated with it. So we have immense ability to control where the power is utilized, how we want to turn off parts of the chip. So for example, we have a mode called the CPX mode, which is we can partition each one of these 8 compute units into one of its own, and then we turn off the interconnect. Right, that saves quite a bit of power because now that we know that you don't, crosstalk between the chiplets. So that's just one example, but energy efficiency is built into the foundation of AMD's hardware and software, and then that kind of unlocks at a higher level because now you have the ability to efficiently deploy on the systems, but then you are also able to, in aggregate serve at scale. So, I've personally seen data center deployments where we show immense, energy efficiency at a data center scale. just by switching to AMD CPUs and GPUs.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a fascinating, fascinating axis. It's not just about performance; it's performance for what.
Fascinating. And you also have to take a long-term view of AI advancements in software and beyond, looking 3, 4, 5 years ahead. What trends do you think will be most transformative? What are the big opportunities there, and how are you preparing for those?
Yeah, so I think the big transition that there are things that I know that will happen that are already happening that we are, you see the starting point of it, right? Like just-time compute, and where inference and the follow-on to inference is taking on a bigger, um, you know, uh, portion of the compute, right? And so the thinking models and the reasoning models, they're doing reasoning after the fact that the training was done. So the training kind of like I think will it'll still be a big portion, but then the inference part of it is just going to grow to a point where it just depends on like, okay, think for an hour and tell me what to do, right? That's just more and more inference, more and more inference, and you're trying to make decisions on that. So I think the growth of inference is going to drastically continue to increase. And the investment that we have to make is on the ability to like weave these together, where you have the
Mm,
core, pre-trained LLM that's generating tokens, right? That's a token machine. And then once you get those tokens, how do you make it smarter and go through more, inference loops that allow you to make more out of it to make it meaningful for whatever task you have at hand. So that's one. And then obviously on the agentic frameworks, some of the um, demonstrations that you've seen probably like even integrated on Chrome or like the operator from OpenAI. Those are all like connecting dots for people where you're like, hey, I don't have to go keep checking Kayak every 30 minutes to find if I can get a deal to fly somewhere, right? That should allow an agent to be just looking at that for you because you just want to deploy an agent. But also, I think the potential of that is pretty significant, but also how we utilize and how we bring that to fruition is important because you have to weave that um, into the common user experience because you want it to be seamless that you're instead of going to kayak.com, you want to do something else and deploy this agent, right? And it goes to kayak.com as one of the websites that has to go to, but then it aggregates this and makes intelligent decisions for you.
fantastic. I can't wait to see all this unfold. I'm super excited for your Advancing AI event, June 12th. It's coming up. To get an inside peek at the future of AI, and you and the other AMD thought leaders, including Dr. Su herself, will be there. You must be getting ready. What can people expect from the event? You'll have thousands of developers there online and in person. Um, what are you most excited about?
I'm excited about obviously new hardware capabilities that we're going to be disclosing and launching. But overall, I just think it's a good combination of like a good amount of hardware innovation, and software investment. Right, like just like I think we just made the announcement on acquiring Brium, and we are going to invest heavily for the long term in software. And talking about that and making people aware about the seriousness and the tenacity in which we are investing in software is going to be super exciting.
Super exciting, a blockbuster event. What more could you ask for? I've enjoyed your tweets as well as those from your colleagues on X at AI at AMD. And so I assume people can reach out to you there for more info.
That's right. We're there on X or LinkedIn. Just reach out to us, and we're looking forward to seeing everyone at the Advanced Media event.
All right. We'll see you there. Sign up, everyone, Thursday, June 12th. And congratulations, Anush. It's an extraordinary journey you're on. Take care.
Thank you.